Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we start our second unit, and in this second unit, we are looking at the United States and its geography. So in this unit, we're just looking at one country, and that is our country, the United States. To get us started, I've got a little welcome video for us, so let's sit back and be introduced to the United States.
Somewhere, yeah, places I've never been, yeah. Going on a tour without a care. I want to take a little trip somewhere, yeah, places I've never been, yeah. Going on a tour. First I'm gonna see Nashville, Tennessee. Then Madison, Wisconsin is where I gotta be. Yeah, then I'll take a plane to, well, actually, I'm afraid to fly, so I think I'll take the train. Let's go, go, go! Going to Trenton, New Jersey, Frankfort, Kentucky. Maybe take a trip to Jackson, Mississippi. Let's see what they can show me in Jefferson City, Missouri. Santa Fe, New Mexico, Denver, Colorado, Boise, Idaho. I love it every time that I go. In 1492, he sailed the ocean blue, but next week I'll see Columbus in Ohio. Grab a little sunshine in Tallahassee, Florida. Take a bite of a beach in Atlanta, Georgia. I've never been to Carson City in Nevada or Lincoln, Nebraska. You can catch me in Phoenix, Arizona, or Sacramento, California. Yeah, St. Paul, Minnesota, maybe Juneau, Alaska. Yeah, I want to take a little trip somewhere. Yeah, places I've never been. Yeah, going on a tour without a care. I want to take a little trip somewhere. Yeah, places I've never been. Yeah, going on a tour. Boston, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire. Going to Vermont for Montpelier. Montgomery, Alabama, then Washington, D.C. to see the nation's capital. Aloha to Honolulu, Hawaii, Des Moines, Iowa, so peaceful to me. Going to Springfield, Illinois to build a little house on a prairie. In Little Rock, Arkansas, I love what I saw. Going back to Dover, Delaware, cause I want more. Indianapolis, Indiana, and Hartford, Connecticut, need an encore. Smelling pine trees in Augusta, Maine. I like Topeka, Kansas, I'm glad that I came, but I've never been to Salt Lake City in Utah or Richmond, Virginia. Gonna see Bismarck, North Dakota, and Charleston, West Virginia. Yeah, Annapolis, Maryland, maybe Lansing, Michigan. Yeah, Helena, Montana, Columbia, South Carolina. Gotta go to Pierre, South Dakota. Yeah, follow if you wanna. I'll be eating a banana in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Schedule that on my planner. Friends say I gotta come sooner to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, so I guess I'm gonna. But first I'm going to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and party in Raleigh, North Carolina. Yeah, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Can't think of a rhyme for Pennsylvania, so I'm skipping to Salem, Oregon, then Austin, Texas, and then maybe Albany, New York for breakfast. Providence, Rhode Island was a blast, and Olympia, Washington was just the bestest. I want to take a little trip somewhere, yeah, places I've never been. Somewhere, yeah, places I've never been, yeah, going on a tour. I want to take a little trip somewhere, yeah, places I've never been, yeah, going on a tour without a care. I want to take a little trip somewhere, yeah, places I've never been, yeah, going on a tour.
Alright, so that starts getting us ready for this unit. So in our first topic of this unit, we're just going to be looking at the political geography of the United States. So at this point, if you haven't also opened up the notes, because you need to make sure you're taking notes while we're going through this section, go back into Google Classroom to the Classwork tab and scroll down to the unit notes for Unit Notes 2. And you're going to be filling in the highlighted yellow missing spaces with the information that I have on this slideshow. So make sure you're keeping up with the notes, because the notes are what we have the unit test from at the end of this unit. So make sure that you have those notes opened also while you are watching the video, and you can split screen them. So political geography of the United States, we're talking about state boundaries. We're talking about country boundaries. Man-made boundaries that have created our shapes of both country and states. That's political geography. So looking at a political map of the United States, we can automatically see all 50 states in the United States. So just as a reference point, most of us should hopefully know that out of the 50 states in the United States, our location is Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is located right here on the map. But there's two things I want to point out. On most maps, you're going to see Alaska and Hawaii offset down here in the southwest. But are those really the locations of Hawaii and Alaska? No. I'm going to show you where they're actually located. Up here is Alaska compared to the rest of the United States. But in order to see the country of the United States with all 48 states together, connected together, easier, we sometimes move Alaska down there so that we can see that it's part of the United States. But if we needed to, or if we wanted to show it where it really was, you're also including Canada and a lot of ocean as well. Same thing with Hawaii. The island of Hawaii, the islands are located way out here in the Pacific Ocean, which is why you'll see them also set down here to be included on the same paper map with the rest of the 48 states in the United States. So that's where Alaska and Hawaii are in relation to the other 48 states. A few state facts. We've already said there's 50 states. We haven't always had 50 states. We started out as a country with 13 states, and over our history, we've expanded to what is now 50 states. Will there be more states in the future? There's always that possibility, but right now we have 50 states in the United States. Out of those states, our biggest state is Alaska. Alaska is so big that out of our 50 states, it makes up 17% of our total land in the United States. Now, our smallest state is Rhode Island. And on the next slide, you're going to see how much bigger Alaska is than Rhode Island. But here's a fun fact. Rhode Island is the smallest state. Alaska is the biggest state. The smallest state of Rhode Island actually has more people living in it than the biggest state of Alaska. And there are geographic reasons for that. So looking at the map again, we have Alaska. And yes, this is a little distorted. It makes Alaska look super huge. But Alaska would actually take up about the size of my hand here in the United States. Where's Rhode Island? Let me see if I can highlight it. Rhode Island is this right here. I just colored in all of Rhode Island. So Rhode Island versus Alaska. Biggest state versus smallest state. The first state in our country was Delaware. How did it become the first state? Well, back when we were a new country and we had just written the Constitution had to be approved by the states. And the first state to approve the U.S. Constitution was Delaware, officially admitting it as the first state into the United States of America. The newest state in 1959 is Hawaii. So Hawaii became our 50th state in the year 1959. So the first state and our newest state. However, we have more land area than just our 50 states. We actually have 16 different areas that we own as territories. Now, only 5 of those territories have a permanent population. So those are the ones we usually refer to as the U.S. territories. And those would be Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa. Those are all going to be islands, either in the Caribbean or the Pacific Ocean, that the United States owns. Those people are American citizens. They just have a status of being a territory, which you'll see in a video, versus a state. So let's take a look at our U.S. territories.
When you think of America, you probably think of this landmass, and this one. Oh, and this one. But what about all of these? Stumped? Don't worry, I got you. Other than the 50 states we were taught about in school, there are 16 territories that fall under U.S. jurisdiction. 11 of those don't even have a permanent population and are mostly small islands and little reefs. And then there's Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa. Together, they have about 4 million people between them. All their territories were snatched up as America began to expand in the 1800s and 1900s. Explorers and the government were getting every piece of land they could. But though they belong to the US, these territories don't have the complete protection of the Constitution. That's thanks to court decisions from the 1900s. So the territories are self-governing with 3 branches of their own government, and 4 of the 5 territories are full of American citizens. American Samoa is the only one where just being born there doesn't make you an American citizen. You're a, quote, U.S. national. They have to participate in the naturalization process if they want to become an American citizen. Each of the territories has one congressperson who can serve on committees, but that person can't actually vote on finished legislation when it hits the floor.
All right, so U.S. territories. What I want to do is look at the biggest of those U.S. territories, and that's Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is this enigma because Puerto Rico, one of our territories full of U.S. citizens, actually has more people than 20 of our states, but yet Puerto Rico still remains just a territory. But you might say, oh, well, it's because Puerto Rico is an island that's separate from the United States. Well, so is Hawaii. Hawaii is islands separate from the United States, but Hawaii is a U.S. state. Maybe you'll say, but Hawaii has more people. No, Hawaii has half as many people as Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's population is around 3 million. Hawaii's is about 1.5 million. So Puerto Rico, big territory, a large population, but still is just a territory that we acquired. And we acquired that from Spain in 1899 through the Spanish-American War. Where is Puerto Rico located? Puerto Rico is located here in the Caribbean Sea. So it's this island right here with the rest of the United States. You've got Florida. So just southeast of Florida, let me go back. Just southeast of Florida in the Caribbean Sea is where you would find Puerto Rico. It's actually where you'd find the U.S. Virgin Islands as well out there. All right, so let's take a look at something else with our country, and that's our capital city. Our capital city is Washington, D.C., not to be confused with the state of Washington, which is on the other side of the country. There's the state of Washington. Our capital city, Washington, D.C., is located right here, and it's located between the states of Maryland and Virginia. Washington, D.C. is not located within any state. It is its own separate federal district, basically a territory, but Washington, D.C. is not a state. Washington, D.C. is a very big city. The city itself has 705,000 people. So very big city, and the area outside of it takes the population into the millions. So very big city for our capital city. What does the D.C. stand for? Well, I said it was a federal district. It was named District of Columbia. That's what the D.C. stands for in Washington, D.C. District of Columbia, and that's a reference to Christopher Columbus, who started the European colonization of the Americas. If we zoom in on what Washington, D.C. looks like, originally, Washington, D.C. was comprised of territory that both Maryland and Virginia gave up, and it actually made this nice little diamond shape around the Potomac River. But in the mid-1800s, Virginia actually took back that part of the capital. So the capital city is technically just this part that Maryland gave up now. And you can see right here, this is the main part of Washington, D.C. So let's take a look at some of the famous monuments that are located in Washington, D.C., starting with the White House. All right. A few other facts about our country. Let's look at the size of the country itself. The United States is a pretty big country. It takes up a large portion of the North American continent. In fact, the United States is the third biggest country in the world. So we have a very large area of land compared to the other 195 countries that are on the earth. Now, the two biggest countries, the ones that are bigger than us, are Russia and Canada. So in terms of land size, they have more area of land. So let's take a look at the United States compared to all the countries in the world. So we have the United States here in pink. And you can see that we make up a large chunk of the world. Canada has a large landmass too, second biggest country. But the largest one is China. After the United States, the fourth largest is China. I think I said Russia is the biggest. Russia's the biggest. China is the fourth largest, which is almost the same size as the United States. But you can see a lot of the other countries, especially Africa and Europe and in Southwest Asia, are much smaller in size. The United States, third biggest country in the world. Last slide. Just wanted to show the US flag and explain what the symbols on it really represent. So our flag, red, white, and blue, and those colors have significance, but it has the symbols of 50 stars. And those 50 stars have represented the 50 states. And that goes back to one of our original flags that had the 13 stars that represented our original 13 states. So the stars represent the states that are in the United States. There are 13 stripes on our flag, and those 13 stripes signify those original 13 states, those 13 colonies that fought and won independence from Great Britain, creating the country of the United States. So, that's all for our first lesson. Make sure you check out Google Classroom for your homework assignment. If you have any questions, please contact me. If not, we'll see you next time.